Hey, there we go.
Hey, welcome everybody. Today we have a super cool presentation with Nay. Nay is the persona of Janae Contag, and she is a Chicago-based synth pop artist, and she also teaches photography and digital art at the art school at DePaul University in Chicago. And she's a prolific commercial photographer. And her music is electronic pop and it's synth driven with lyrical satire. And she has developed this whole world around her music. And a lot of it is based off of, recently, is based off of her 2021 album Push Button Future, which is dance pop confection with a biting edge, and it's a commentary on modern day consumerism, commercialism, influencer culture, and it's bold, it's flashy, and has elements of rap and EDM, and skewering white privilege in a catchy way. And she's also created an interactive DIY concert series called Saturday, Orbital Ice Cream, and that's on her YouTube channel, and we'll pop the links in for those that you can watch it. And really excited to have you here, Nay. And again, my name is Alark, and I'm with SupremeSound.Life, which is a coaching platform for female artists in pop and electronic music who are singers, songwriters, and music producers who are looking to find their true voice and build their authentic career that speaks to the audience that they love, and creating the artist lifestyle that they love in the process as well. And Nay is going to show us the behind the scenes elements of her business as an artist. And we're just so grateful to have you here.
Awesome. Thank you for the super awesome, super kind intro, Alark, and thank you so much for having me back for a second part of this super cool presentation series. I hope it's really helpful for everyone who's tuning in. If you can only make it for part of it, you have more questions, feel free to send me a DM at naysynthpop on my Instagram. Visit my website, naymusic.com, and let's connect. But since we're going to move forward, Alark, if you have any questions while I'm talking about some of these big ideas, please feel free to interrupt. If any other questions or comments pop up along the way, please feel free to post in the chat, and I'll answer as we're going. But yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say that the other first part of the series that that you're referring to, for anyone who's catching up now, is a presentation that May led on how to DIY your own pro photo shoots, just using like your phone and the lighting from a window and best angles and all of this. So you can catch that link as well in the replay. But let's continue.
Yeah, that was super fun. And this one's going to be a little bit different because guess what? We are in the spaceship.
Yeah.
We've got a spray painted backdrop that my partner, Blizz, who's over here running cameras, etc. We are in our live streaming studio that we built over the course of the global pandemic, getting some super cool little webcams that we positioned all around our studio space. So you can see me right here. You can see me from right over here. And then I'll actually show you, this is our performance and rehearsal space. And then we've conducted quite a few live interviews. Hey, Blizz. He's really running the show on this particular presentation. So all of the cool things that you see happening behind the scenes here is Blizz.
Thank you. That's very nice.
I'm going to run over to the Spaceship Lounge so you can see the other side of it. And I just want to preface this with the space I'm about to walk into is inside of a kitchen closet.
Awesome. And Liz, I just want to let you know right now, we're getting a little bit of a hum and feedback underneath the audio. I don't know if you're able to adjust that at all.
Okay, give me a second. Did that go away right there?
Yeah.
It did.
Okay.
It was from this, maybe from the monitor here. Turn it down
Could
a
be.
little bit.
I don't know.
Cool.
Anyway, there's the Spaceship Lounge.
How do things sound from over here?
Sounds good.
Awesome. So this is the Spaceship Lounge where certain scenes and sequences in Saturday, which is a live streaming fictional narrative. We're going to show some clips from that in a bit as a part of this presentation. This is a part of our set, and it's also the place where after the show, Blizz and I would sit down and answer any audience questions at the end of the show to kind of clear things up, have a drink, cheers to the viewers for being with us, and really incorporate part of that interactive element, of course, both during the show, and then there's always questions that come up that you can't get to while you're actually performing. So we like to really embrace the opportunity to talk to the viewers and the audience afterwards. So now you've seen the spaceship. I'll show a few more behind the scenes pictures in the presentation. So awesome.
That's so cool that you have a spaceship lounge. Narrative spaces in my
The humming world, right?
Alark, I think it might be something coming from, it sounds almost like cicadas. There it went away again.
Oh, it's me when I mute myself. I'll just mute myself.
Okay.
But come back on,
But yeah.
unmute when you're asking something.
Got it.
Cool. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how to create, brand, and market your unique world as an artist. And to do that, of course, this is a really big topic. And when Alark asked me to present on this, I was like, oh man, I'm going to talk about my experience to some extent, and then some helpful tips and advice to others who are interested in embarking on this big journey, because it's definitely been a huge learning experience for me along the way, in particular over the last couple of years working on and distributing, releasing the album Push Button Future, which Alark talked about at the beginning here. So the roadmap of what I'd like to cover today are, first I'm going to tell you about the challenges that I struggled with when I was thinking about how to actually get started and get moving with all of this, hopefully, and I'm assuming some of you all will relate. I'm going to talk about the lesser known path to establishing a brand identity. That's kind of a secret. We're going to reveal that as we keep moving forward in the presentation. I'm going to give you some ideas on how you can apply these skills and concepts to your own work and your own brand identity as you're building your artist persona, your artist personality, all of that. And hopefully these are some ideas where you might latch on to one or two of them and kind of see where it takes you. And then lastly, I'll give you a little bit more of a behind the scenes look at how I do it. So awesome. Without further ado.
Your branding is so strong.
Thanks. It's those photo skills. My background, as Alark mentioned, is in visual art and design. So that's been something that I can always kind of fall back on to put what I'm doing forward. But to be honest, as a musician, and never really identifying as a musician growing up, other than doing classical piano, competitive piano classes and performances, flute performances, all of that sort of thing, I didn't really start in on pop music until 2015 because I thought it would be fun and easy. It is fun. It is not easy. And I think getting over that imposter syndrome, especially as I started to recognize that the scope of what this is so much bigger, it was really encouraging to keep doing it. But at the same time, I had to kind of confront myself in my own feeling of, okay, is this for me? Can I actually pull this off? Are people going to buy into what I'm doing? I don't know. That sort of running dialogue that a lot of us have in our heads as a limiting belief. We're going to talk more about that as well. I wasn't sure exactly what my story was. I knew that Nay sounded cool because it's the last three letters of my name and it's different than myself, but I wasn't really sure who Nay was or where she came from or why she existed in the first place and why she was making this music. Of course, I had natural fears of introducing my music and this Nay project in a more public space, a public presentation of this work, because that has all of those other attachments and fears. What will people think? What will people say? And then the last challenge really is thinking about marketing. Marketing is a scary, broad, expansive concept especially if you didn't study it in school and you're not exactly sure how to market your own art, which is something that's such a personal and emotional, and you're very close to that experience. And so, marketing has a very salesy connotation to it. So how do you deal with that? But at the end of the day, the purpose of marketing, right, is to reach others. It's for your music, for your art to reach others. And to me, that's important because I want to drum up that conversation. I want to start a conversation with other people, and I need marketing in order for people to hear the work that I'm making. So those were some of the big challenges for me. Here's what I knew, and this was helpful to write down, what do I actually know about what I can do and what I can contribute? I know that a successful brand has a consistent feel to it. It's consistent visuals, consistent presence. That's really important. So I knew that if I was going to do this, I both needed to show up consistently, but also have the imagery flow together in a way that sort of are different puzzle pieces of the same character. And it was also helpful, like I mentioned, to remember that I have a deeper knowledge in visual art and photography, and I knew that this would be a really helpful connection. Now, if your background is in engineering or human resources or some awesome field in science or health sciences, I think that because we're all humans, we can start to relate our various and varying and diverse backgrounds to a lot of things that we do, even if we're doing it subconsciously. So that's another thing to keep in mind. The last thing is, for me personally, I knew that my motivation was to make big conceptual ideas, the jargon that I'd studied in graduate school. I wanted to make these concepts accessible, personal, and fun. And what better way to do it than with pop music, electronic pop music? Yeah, that's why we're here. So my question for you, if you're watching, and if you're watching the replay, you want to take a screenshot of this, is what are the 3 things you feel really certain about? Like the things that you know in the face of obviously there's challenges to a lot of this. So do you have a background in some level of music theory? Are you interested in fashion? Do you know or have an idea of the sound you want and the artists that are really influential to you? For me personally, it's not just musical artists, but it's also comedians, it's visual artists, it's actors and comedians on Saturday Night Live. There's a lot of potential influences. So you don't necessarily have to be looking specifically at musicians and specifically musicians in your genre. Another thing, do you know how to get around on piano? Do you know how to get around on guitar or an instrument? What we talked about, electrical engineering. What is your professional background? Maybe that gives you some layers of expertise that you could tap into in your music and in your brand. Or maybe you have a lot of relationship experience and you are overflowing and outpouring with songs about really bad past relationships, really good past relationships. That also counts as experience and can really influence your music. But those are the things that you know. The other side of this is, what do you want to do and how do you define success? This is a bigger, more loaded question, but when we talk about goal setting, and I know that you, Alark, talk a lot about goal setting and how to define those goals and write those goals down.
I just want to say one thing on that I'm super excited about, and I want to share this in case other people are interested. I'm so into goal setting that next week I'm taking off all appointments. I'm having my CEO week, first week of every quarter, where I'm just going to be reviewing the past quarter and setting the goals for the next quarter with numbers. I'm working with an assistant. We're going deep dive into metrics and planning. So this was an idea that mentors of mine do, and now I'm implementing it this year, last January now. So
yes,
just excited about goal setting.
That's so good. But making that time to actually take the time to really focus on goals is really great. And that's why I said, with this slide, take a screenshot and reflect on it, because there's so many different avenues for goal setting and directions you can take that. It's not like you can necessarily take the time to goal set for 30 minutes after a really long day when the house is chaos and you're just trying to get some food and fall asleep, play some video games or something. You have to set the time for it. But ultimately, your goal setting has to be based off of your personal definition of success. So is that finding fans and a following for what you're doing? Is that performing live? Is that actually having your music make some kind of side stream of income or more than that? Or is it making amazing, memorable music that actually gets heard and people are really into it, getting recognized and appreciated for the art that you're creating? And it could be any combination of those or more than those, but that's just some examples. So for me, I started to address my own challenges and my limiting beliefs that I had in my mindset. And to do this, and these are some tools that I'm going to share with you today, I started social proofing what I was doing. And by social proofing, I don't necessarily mean posting everything I was working on Instagram and asking, hey, what do you think? What do you think? But rather having conversations with people that I respect and trust, having them over, making dinner and drinks, having listening sessions, talking about the music, and then me essentially sitting there with my notepad, taking notes, and then thinking about how all of these different things can coalesce. The second part of that is creating a persona. So I decided to create a persona for my music project because I could sort of detach it from Janae Kontag, the visual artist, or Janae Kontag, the person going through her daily life. And that sort of made it more magical to me and more exciting and more fun. We're going to talk about that as well. The third thing is mind mapping. Mind mapping, we're going to talk about that as well. But the fact that you're getting this feedback, asking people, friends, partners, colleagues, those that you know and trust to give you feedback can all start to play into an expanded perspective of your identity as a persona. So how does this work? The first part of this, social proofing. Find a community. Thank you. Find a community. You're here with a lark, you're here with SupremeSound.Life. This is a community. This counts. You can social proof your work here and you can enter those conversations. You're around other artists who you can bounce ideas off of. That's great. Talk to people you trust and respect for their knowledge. Work with a coach. Find someone who you trust, who you know can build you up along that process, or someone who's, again, a respected professional in your field. Personally show appreciation to those who you are putting as a part of your team. You're building your team. You're showing them, hey, I really appreciate your help. Take notes and keep all your notes in the same place so they don't start getting scattered. So that could be in a Google Drive, a paper clipboard, notes on your iPhone, voice notes. Keep all of your notes in the same place or in one or two places so that when it's time to start forming out this persona, you know where you can find that information that you've been jotting down after having so many wonderful and potentially life-changing conversations with peers, colleagues, and coaches. And then rest. I love that you just mentioned, Alark, that you're taking that week and it's more of a restful process where you can really relax your mind, because when you take a week or longer, let those conversations and ideas sink in. That's really important because your subconscious mind plays a really big part in your persona understanding, your personal identity understanding, and you need to activate your subconscious by giving yourself space from these big concepts and ideas. Let it do its work and synthesize all of that information, because you're probably not going to make any overnight realizations. This is a process. Yeah.
A mentor of mine says sometimes you can take the quantum leap with the helicopter to the top of the mountain, but usually it's the small steps.
Yes. Oh man, I don't think I've seen that helicopter ever. So, the first part of this, the creation of a persona, after having all of these conversations, um, Oxford Language Dictionary defines a persona as the aspect of someone's character that's presented to or perceived by others. Even if that persona is actually you, like if I decided to call my music Janae Kontag musician, for example, it still is probably detached. Your artist self is probably detached from your private self and the way that you're behaving just when nobody's watching. Like we're literally performing ourselves every single day. If I'm taking photos of someone as a photographer, I'm performing the photographer side of myself. If I'm hanging out with Blizzle and we're having a creative brainstorming session, I'm performing another part of myself. If I'm in front of my parents, I'm performing a part of myself. So what we need to do is figure out those performative aspects that we can bring in to this persona character. Having that persona helps to ultimately distill the values for your public presence, and that helps out whether it's on social media, whether it's performing on stage, and it can be your brand, your persona. A couple of examples I think are interesting in pop culture that I think we should talk about more, because it seems like with celebrity, a lot of times it's like, oh, well, Taylor Swift did this. Oh, Dua Lipa did this. And it's like, well, yes, but no, because these are personas that have been built up over time and by huge productions and management deals and contracts, etc. And Taylor Swift actually pokes fun at this whole concept of creating multiple personas in her music videos. At the very end of her music video, Look What You Made Me Do from 2017, where the last shot of that music video is her standing right next to all of these different personas of herself that have appeared over the years. Grimes, or Claire Boucher, also is very well known for her various personas. And when she released her fourth album called Art Angels, she actually performed each song on that album in a different persona, and all of those personas added up to being the very quirky, eccentric character or caricature that we know as Grimes. And so that includes, she sang from fantastical perspectives, from a vampire type person, a Ginger Spice type person, a Harley Quinn type person, and all of these different personas came together in the album. And then one of my favorite examples and one of my influences is Kesha, who literally not only changed her persona, but changed the spelling of her name from 2010 when her album Animal came out to 2017 when she had just gotten out of rehab in Chicago and was ready to release her new album, Rainbow, which was a redeclamation, a declaration about herself, about who she is in the world, about understanding heightened awareness of the importance of mental health, whereas her satirical original persona was very much more of the party girl, the bottle of Jack in the bathroom sort of thing. So it's really interesting watching as artist personas evolve and the different things that sort of make that possible. So to figure out your persona, one thing you can do, and this is something you could do while you're having your morning coffee, something that's a little bit faster, is really picking out what your core values are as an artist. And these can be used to shape how your persona acts, what your persona cares about, what your persona writes about. That could be anything from spirituality to citizenship and how you give back to the community, your own personal determination, like I am here for the hustle, I am determined, I am persistent. It could be that you're really interested in having your art bring some aspect of wisdom or education to that process. I'm definitely personally in that camp, and kind of merging that with fun and optimism. And so some of these core values shape the tone of my work, my photos, the ridiculous absurdity of the show when I perform as Nay. So what you're going to do is distill those values and ultimately infuse them into your persona, like a really good, strong tea, or like when you combine multiple teas in the same cup because it's fun. Does anyone else do that? Liz is laughing at me. So this idea sounds easy. It's not a cup of tea, actually. That was not an intended pun. It isn't. It isn't a super easy task. First, you have to go back to your notes, find those notes that you stored away in that special place, all of those conversations, and then start by defining the broad aspects of your artist persona and then get down into the specifics. Then you can start connecting your ideas to each other. How do you do that? Well, there is a very cool thing called a mind map. This whole process can be accomplished through a mind map. I create these for any visual or music project because it really helps to write down a bunch of ideas and then start to make connections in that process. This is my Nay mind map that I made about 3 months before we released Push Button Future. And you can kind of see there is a Nay fantasy aspect, a Nay reality aspect, some of those ideas that are addressed in the songs on the album, ranging from systemic entitlement to the negative effects of boredom, addiction, consumption that can come out of the state of being in a place of privilege. And so a lot of the caricatures that I perform on the album are white women who conspicuously consume, whether that's by spending $7 on a Starbucks latte, whether that's throwing an extravagant, expensive unicorn party for their kid, or whether that's going to Vegas and losing it all and not caring. So a lot of these ideas and these stories and these personas go back to a lot of these big themes. Here's a little close up so you can see the sort of why and the rationale and how these different ideas connect in the performances. And it's helpful for me since Nay is a persona and a caricature, but she also performs as other personas. I started giving the other personas names, like the hyper caffeinated Zumba instructor who can't actually like meet her weight goals because she teaches Zumba right next to a Smoothie King. Her name is Aaliyah. No one needs to know that but me, but it helps me think about, all right, well, how would Leah sing this song? Or how would Amber, who's a mid-level corporate manager, how would she sing this song? What would her facial expressions be? That's really helpful to me as I'm thinking about these different caricatures of essentially white privileged women. So the next concept that I'm about to talk about, don't get mad. This might not be as popular in marketing circles, but this brings us to the big secret of this presentation and kind of what I'm building up to here. This is the lesser known path for establishing an artist brand and identity. I want you to think about...
Angry in that picture.
I am angry. I want you to embrace creating long form content. I'm going to break this down. Even if you only make 1 or 2 pieces of long form content in a year, this is going to dramatically help your whole artist identity, your brand, your social media, and I'll tell you why. What's the difference between long form content and short form content? Well, short form content is the stuff that already surrounds us in the ridiculous, absurd image soup of Instagram Reels, TikTok, short videos, quick YouTube tutorials, 5 easy tricks for doing jumping jacks. I don't know. It's short, consumable content that's fun, exciting, sparkly, shiny, and we consume, and many of us are creating it every single day. Short form content pieces are easy to consume. They take less time to make, whether that's photos like we showed and talked about in the last workshop, short videos, quick tutorials. Also, they're fast and easy to digest for your viewers. So once it's out there, you're not asking your viewer for a whole lot of time, or a potential fan for a whole lot of time to look at it. And in fact, all marketing for musician courses emphasize the importance of this. Your presence on Instagram, your presence on TikTok, your presence on YouTube. And that's because they are important. And I'm not trying to diss social short form content at all. And you can consume short form content to learn about stuff widely and efficiently as well. It's important for your branding. It's easier to be consistent because these pieces don't take as much time to put together. You can create an image and even talk about your values in short form content. It's great. You're like, why aren't we just doing this? Well, here's the thing. There's one big drawback to short form content. Their strength is also their weakness. They're too short in many cases to help us understand deeply and really dig into our persona, our values, our brand identity at a deeper level that we can really embrace and feel confident about, in a way where you're not like, wait, how many views did my reel get? Or, oh, how many likes did my TikTok? Like, it's because you're worried about the content itself and how it's performing, and not necessarily the message. And so even doing a whole lot of these pieces doesn't necessarily even add up to the bigger, deeper conversation. And I have a little graphic here of a little digger guy who's like, I made a lot of reels and TikToks and a bunch of random stuff. And you can kind of see how they've dug in all over every corner of the earth. But we prefer this. I made a series of reels, all related to a big idea that's important to me. I did a live stream concert for an hour that I promoted. I actually posted it. I have a lot to share, both longer things and the more consumable things I was able to make out of it. So for example, you might be a big fan of an artist like Lady Gaga and know all the lyrics to her music, listen to her album, seen her videos on Instagram, but you don't necessarily have an in-depth idea of her values until you watch the docu-series and the documentary about her life, right? A documentary would be long-form content. When it comes down to it, a lot of the individuals who are really successful at creating short-form content, your content creator folks, are really successful because they've already succeeded at making long-form content. That's everyone from comedians to public figures like the Kardashians. Obviously, if you've watched the Kardashians on TV, you have this glimpse into their life, and that's long-form content and makes everything they do on social media feel like it has a context. It has a brand where it sits, right? And then, of course, marketing gurus and other public figures who give TED Talks, for example. Lily Singh her Instagram is hilarious and definitely worth checking out. But so is her TED Talk, where she really talks about her rise to success as a female Indian comedian in the industry. I made a drawing for you. This is a little digger, has a bow, very feminine, I guess, today, who's like, who am I? Well, you can kind of think about content creation as this sort of digging into the earth and getting to know yourself as a persona. So a 30-second video on Instagram, an Instagram post, really great, a little bit surface level. That's okay. We need that in order to get to the good stuff anyway. Short collab performance, a little bit deeper, a little bit longer, a live stream of an original song, live stream a concert with an audience Q&A. Now we're getting some interactive components, extending the length of what we're making, adding value for an audience member that's like, yeah, I came out to see what you got. Making a music video, oh my God, you should do this. So great. And you really get to perform as that character, perform as that persona. Perform a concert that has an interview alongside of it with an industry pro. Maybe that's on YouTube, maybe that's on radio. That expands as well. And if you're not necessarily scheduling all those interviews at this point in your career, you could also just create a full-length comic narrative out of drawings or GIFs or Google images, or make a mini documentary about your story or journey that you share with your followers. Here's the very wide view of our Saturday setup. And Saturday, of course, I'm getting to the idea that Saturday has been a really big part of my persona building and brand building. You're seeing the studio. This is where I felt this talk would be most appropriate to take place. And the thing is, when people are consuming a longer form content piece, they're gaining a deeper understanding of who you are. I might not have hundreds of people watching Saturday, but I definitely had 30 to 50 people on these live streams. And because of that, they open the emails that I send, they're invested in my story, they find value in what I'm bringing them. And when you create that long form content, you personally gain a deeper understanding of your music, your art, your brand, and how it all fits together, like the mind map. Connections, all about connections. Yeah. So other examples of long form content that you might even consume yourself and not even think of it this way include podcasts, documentaries, workshops like this one, because it's an hour and we go in deep with a lark and nay, this is great. Books, biographies, debates, lectures. The professor side of me is like, yeah, take a class, learn something over the course of at least 11 weeks. Makes a difference. Other examples of long form content in music, writing a whole album. Even if you don't release it all at once, you have these connecting themes that bring 35 to 45 minutes of music together. Doing a live concert, doing a live stream concert, a live stream interview, a podcast interview, a music documentary, creating a comic narrative, fantasy or fiction narrative. When I was in high school, and even to this day, I was a really big Coheed and Cambria fan, which is kind of a rock metal band with an undercurrent sci-fi thing going on. And I bought all of the comic books that they had released as a band that have all of these characters which they're singing about in their music. And I always thought that that was really cool. And I kind of latched onto that idea in building my own science fiction narrative around the Nay persona. Grimes is also a great example. She's actually made drawing series of her personas and her characters that go along with each of the songs on Art Angels, her fourth album. If you want to head back over to that PowerPoint, Liz. That's a picture from actually drawn by Grimes. So here's the other benefits. Long form content makes it easier to create short form content because you know who you are and what you want to talk about. You can break it up into little pieces. You can post clips from your live stream, your best moments, your highlights, create a highlights reel out of it. You have more micro stories, short stories to tell your fans. You end up with behind the scenes content from making this, like making a music video, for example. You have photo documentation, more content. You have created a world and you understand the characters and your own persona within it because it's taking place over a longer setting, a longer period of time. So here's our digger friend again. In the spirit of short form content, here's a TLDR. Short form content is the spark that gets you to care about something. You can't deny that. Yet it's the long form content, like books, for example, that will give you a deep understanding. So you should use both. Short form and long form content are great for building your brand, even though we have to acknowledge the internet is biased towards short form content. That's like the instant reward system. It's seeing the numbers. We know as content consumers that short form content is shiny, easy, and fun. It's not always that easy. And creating short form content can be pretty overwhelming in its own ways. I mean, it takes a certain mental state to plan out an Instagram schedule, to make a post on Instagram, to make a post on TikTok, and then sit and see how it goes. It's not mentally healthy. There's an overwhelmingness to that in itself, but at least if you've made a long form content piece, you can take full ownership and break it out into little bits and pieces and see what does well in the bigger ether. But you've made personal progress in the process of creating that long form content. So I'll end this presentation with a few ideas for you to get started on this. Create a mind map where you define your core values, define a dream aesthetic. What do you want it to look like? Connect your personal stories, or create fictional stories and characters that relate back to your core values. It doesn't matter if it's true, fake, false. It just has to be authentically related to your core values. Even if your characters are made up, I can say I authentically think my alien friend Lunabelle is a total badass because I got to be on the show with her for many months last year. And then commit to a long form content idea. Again, you don't need to make a whole bunch of this. You can't. It takes more time. Commit to one thing that you want to create. A lot of my inspiration for Saturday came from watching Twitch streamers who would stream for 4 hours. And I was like, how is someone going to play music for 4 hours and have this many people watching them? It's not that they're playing music the whole time, is that they're engaging and interacting with the people who have come to watch this particular Twitch streamer play themes from various indie video games. And then she would sit and talk to them, answer questions, talk about what she ate for breakfast. It doesn't matter. People were all in on this. I thought that was super cool. Other ideas you can try: write a 10 to 15 page story where you or your persona is the main character. It could be fictional, grounded in your own reality, a combination. If your persona were a superhero, what would her powers be and what is her origin story? Draw this, write this out, and then you could even share it in a story session stream. I'd like to do this at some point for the Nay origin story because it's not quite been made clear, but the legend is that she was raised inside of a mall by mannequins. And she spent much of her time in this mall observing different people, how they behaved, how they shopped, how they consumed, how they interacted with each other. And at the end of the day, she had to go back to the mannequins, who were ultimately very much content just by being still and stoic and made of plastic. So that's a part of it. I need to actually sit down and write the whole story still. Blizzle is laughing at me because he knows it needs to happen too. We've talked about it so many times. Put together a live stream concert where you play your music, talk about the inspiration behind each song. If you don't have a lot of music that you've written yet, you could do this with a bunch of covers and then talk about why you chose them, why each of those songs is accessible or interesting to you. You could create a mood board of visuals, songs, other inspirational artists, and spend an hour talking about why you chose each of the selected visual pieces. You could make a DIY music video, have a partner or a friend document the behind the scenes. You could write a theatrical fictional script starring you as the artist persona. It could be a musical, but it doesn't have to be. So here's how we did this. We made Saturday. You saw the studio. I spent many hours with Blizzle creating the arts and crafts specific for the show. And then part of my tasks was learning how to create the art, the visuals, the fashion, Why do I wear silver in every episode? Because it looks really good on camera, on these cameras. Like, it's flashy, it's fun, it's spacey, it's intergalactic. Am I the first synth artist who has ever worn a silver outfit on camera? Absolutely not. Does it work for my persona in space? Heck yes. It's fine. It's great because ultimately I'm me. I'm Nay. I'm that persona. And Blizz, of course, who's working the behind the scenes right now, took it upon himself to learn how to do OBS video camera switching. So we were able to make the show move forward in a really interesting way. Again, our first season of Saturday we did during 2020, and that was like 4 episodes. And then we came back in 2021 and really honed in on it. So this project, thank you, is a 2-year endeavor, and we're hoping to get back into season 3 at some point by the end of this year. We wrote scripts. Each of these scripts was about 15 to 20 pages of all of the lines from our supercomputer, our guest experts, Nay, Blizz, etc. Tried to memorize it, never worked. So we winged it, improv, but we had the script, so we knew what was going to happen, and generally speaking, in what order. We built a cave in the basement and filmed the inside of it on a skateboard with Blizzle going through this thing and literally pushing.
All right, shot number 6 again. Take 2.
My phone through this thing.
Oh yeah.
In order to get our like green screen superimposed image of Nay and Blizz traveling through the Meliorum cave on a planet that we visited in order to get their ice cream.
One. I don't know why this one. Did you change the color? It's beautiful.
So that's an example.
Good work.
You should go back one slide.
Oh yeah.
Before that one. Yeah, like there's the cave from the outside with the little.
Yeah, that's the cave from the outside. It looks like a piece of trash. It's like chicken wire and brown paper, and then it's transformed just by pushing my phone on a skateboard, which is great.
All right, shot number.
So that's the cave superimposed behind us when we were in the MPS 2x5x1 cave crawler from Saturday, exploring these caves, finding these alien species. And of course, we went all in on the arts and crafts, the video production of our mission briefs. And it was a collaborative process, a lot of trial and error. Like I mentioned, it was a 2-year project. You can find more about Saturday if you visit my Instagram at NaySynthPop, of course, and that'll give you some insight. But if you want to hear a little bit about, I think we have time to screen a mission brief.
Yeah,
Blizz?
it's 6. It's 48 after. So
we just want to make sure we have a few minutes for questions here at the end.
Okay, I can hit it.
Yeah, let's hit it. Let's hit it.
Here we go.
IICC Mission Brief 20488. Nay and Blizz. Your IICC mission is to navigate to the planet of Phidera, a mostly aquatic planet covered in saltwater, not so unlike Earth's own vast oceans, rich with species and life. On this planet, Phydragels are the governing inhabitants. A natatory species, Phydragels have engineered complex hydraulic systems to move quickly through the waters, send messages, and even live above the surface of water in luxurious platform pools. For select groups of Phydragels. I should mention, the Phydragel civilization is structured as something like we would call a caste system. Most Phydragel's designations and vocations are determined early in life. For all their market ingenuity on their planet, the Phydragels have not yet created a means to travel to space. Building a rocket ship with adequate firepower and a water-filled cabin has always seemed a daunting task, but one that the Phydragels have aspired towards for millennia. I should also mention that the IICC did not receive this call for help from the governing body, but rather from a small group of adolescent hydrogels, an intelligent group of rebellious youngsters with their own ambitions. They wish for change in aspects of their own society's structure. The IICC believes these young citizens to be onto something, but your mission is to communicate with them about their desires, negotiate with them and the hydrogel government, and help the inhabitants come closer to their dreams of spaceflight. Then, retrieve their mouth-watering, water-based sorbet recipe from Fidera's ice cream vault, which will prove invaluable to Earth's retail industries. If you succeed.
Whoa.
So that's an example of one of the tasks that Nay and Blizz had to do. We had our friend Nathan Glenn, who voices Keonius and has a background in improv, again talking about coaches and people who you respect to help you work through an idea. He did the voiceover recording for the IICC mission brief as our supercomputer AI Keonius, and Blizz, the real Ryan Black, did the composition for the music that you heard playing behind that. So now that I've established a thread through long form content, you can see how I bring this story into my music, social media. I have values that I keep coming back to that are personal, but not necessarily too personal. My own core values are intellectual curiosity and the importance of education, the importance of science and discovery and how that relates back to art, music, social critique of consumerism, interactivity and digital art. These are things that are my jam when I wake up in the morning and get my coffee. I hope that there's one thing I can do in the course of the day that serves my personal core values. I have content and ideas for my email list from these ideas, and I can always try to provide value to my subscribers who want to learn from and be a part of this evolving story. I have a lot more confidence and a lot less imposter syndrome, which Blizzle can attest to, because there were some tearful nights. I'm not exaggerating, getting this stuff started. It was a lot of work and really overwhelming. So I made one more drawing for you. The journey is long form and ongoing. Longer content mirrors life because it's longer, it's what we experience. Short form content can hang off of that primary thread, whether that's a TikTok video, an Instagram highlight, a BTS video, an email piece. The value that I'm going to talk about, my core value in my Instagram caption, it all can come off of that long form content piece. So you don't have to make a lot of long form content, but the process of creating any amount of it is really going to pay off if you are ready to go deep into your persona. So if you want to learn more about my story, subscribe to my email list. That's where I'm consistently going deep and most consistently active. Join me. It's awesome. If you hate it, you can unsubscribe. It's great, but you probably won't because it's very fun, entertaining, and I get into it. So,
and if you're just listening to it, it's naemusic.com. So NAE music.com/subscribe -to spelled out TO hyphen Nay, NAE.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Yeah. I know we have a hard stop time in just a few minutes, so we can wrap all of this up in the next hour or within the hour. Do you have any questions or any points that you want to add? Because I know I did a lot of the talking, kind of gave an academic lecture here. I hope that's okay.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I'm blown away by this. I think it's really interesting. I was just taking some notes. Having the origin story, it's true because I think about some of the people that I follow on socials that I find to be really interesting people, and I'm like, what is their origin story? Some of them are more obscure with that. But one of the biggest things that stuck out to me is thinking about the time spent making music versus the branding and marketing pieces. And as a musician, first and foremost, like you, Well, from my experience, it's always been like, okay, just make the music, and I didn't think that much about the marketing. And I've been in a number of business coaching programs for the past years, and one of my mentors, Gina DeVee, says consistent marketing brings consistent cash. And if you think about it, doesn't matter what industry or business this is, but with music, it's marketing, telling the world, brings in the followers and the fans who are dedicated, who bring the cash. And it's like not money for money's end sake, but the money funds your dreams. It funds the projects and the growth. But yeah, so the time spent making music versus the branding and marketing is still something that's difficult for me to wrap my head around. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I can't say that I have it all figured out, but I can say that it's those moments of actually being in a creative mode, creatively making music, getting ideas down, sketching out a song idea, lyrics. I get really into that, and it's sort of like all of the marketing like falls aside and the time gets spent that way. I personally struggle with sort of balancing the time between the two, because once I focus in on something, I am focused and I'm like, oh, I should have done a behind the scenes of me recording vocals on that thing, but I was so into it. I think that time of actually creating is really special, and it's like a sacred time, and there's never enough of it or enough time where it's just you by yourself in that room or in that headspace doing it. And I think it needs to be scheduled, and it's not often because it's something that is for you. It's not something that social media is going to reward you for. But I also know a really good friend of mine who's an incredible photographer, runs her own photography business. She's very much of the mindset that 20% goes to the creation process and 80% goes to the business. And she is a serial entrepreneur. She's fantastic at it. I admire her and I learn a lot from observing her practice, but she operates on an 80 to 20 scale, and that's been really successful for her. I don't necessarily know that it's not, I don't know that it's for me, but yeah.
Oh, my mind is blown with that 80-20. Well, like, yeah, Pareto's principle, 80-20 rule definitely is, based in fact. And I'm like, oh, my personal experience is I used to do 80-20, 80% music, 20% marketing. And yeah, now that's interesting to think about, because it's like once we create the music and we put all this time and energy into to get it out, it takes the time and the financial investment. Yes. One of my friends who's an artist manager, he says the same budget that you put into a song, you should have at least that same budget for the marketing. Mm-hmm. And so budget, like money buys time as well. So thinking about it like that. But one of my things this year is to focus more on marketing. So that's really going to sit with me, that 80-20 rule for 80% marketing. And approaching it with a realm of curiosity, like what are the results going to be? Like I track the metrics, hence my CEO week next week is where there's, working a lot in spreadsheets. But the deep work, it's enjoyable, but testing, building that process in the brand. Yeah.
It's a lot.
To develop my brand more.
It's a lot. It is a lot of time. And especially if you are a self-funded artist, you're not sitting on a bunch of cash and a bunch of time to do what you want. Those decisions become even more mission critical to kind of going back to your goals and what your core values are. How much is that marketing side valuable to you versus how much is the creative side, the act of making, the process valuable to you? And whether you want to be successful in music or not, I personally think you also have to be true to yourself and where you want to spend your time. Marketing being an important part about finding those people and finding that community. But at the end of it, you can't sacrifice all of your creative time either, because then you start losing hold of or losing sight of your artist persona and your identity. And so those things have to work synchronously together.
I think a good way to experiment with it is to set a time frame. Like, I'm going to do this for a quarter. Like, I'm going to try this percentage for a quarter. So, you know, track where I am, where I start, and where I am when I lead, and then look back and analyze those results, and then tweak as we go forward. Yeah.
That's great. I mean,
That's
having,
the next quarter.
what did you say? Sorry.
That's my goal for the next quarter now with this. I'm like, oh, okay. Especially because I have a new release coming out and I'm working on a music video. And I'm also taking notes during your presentation about like how I can add glimpses of my origin story into the video and different elements that I want to bring in that aren't in there yet. I'm like halfway developing the content, working with an editor right now. So
Yes, I can't wait to see it.
rubbed off on me a lot already, just in general, and especially within this talk. So this is getting put into practice on my end.
Awesome.
I love the idea of your world, creating your world. You have a good job with that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It's like I said, it's been a process, and it's an ongoing process. And I hope that the process never ends. It's a world that's constantly being created and shaped and formed through these conversations, new mind maps, new music. We're just building. We're just continuing to dig deeper into what's important and to what this world is. So, yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And thinking about how one can start implementing this into their artistic practice is like start with smaller concepts and then build out from there.
Yeah.
You have already a lot that you've created. Like you said, it took 2 years, and you and Bliss are a team doing it. So you have two people doing it.
Totally.
So I'm thinking about some of the artists like in SupremeSound.Life, how it's just them as independent artists. So one of the things that I'm working on as well is do less better. So it's like, what can I start with a very focused intention with? And actually it's with that 10 inches deep, 2 inches wide, where I used to do 10 inches wide, 2 inches deep, but it's like, okay, let me go 10 inches deep and create the content based off that.
I love that. It's super
Yeah.
cool. And I think, you know, I am very happy to be working with a partner who I get along with and I vibe well with, and there's some division of labor in all of that. But at the end of the day, both of us have to face, you know, the public and what we stand for, and how do we, you know, how does an individual articulate that and put that into words and thoughts? That's I think it's a really personal, ongoing process too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How are we doing on our time? It's right at 7:02.
Yeah, let's wrap. This was fantastic. So again, you can find Nay at Nay Synthpop on Instagram. So that's NAESYNTHPOP. Sign up for her newsletter. She has a lot of really cool events coming up, especially new music releases. And in that, again, the link is www.naymusic.com. So it's naemusic.com/subscribe-to-nay, N-A-E. And I'm on Nay's list, and she shares a lot about the images and illustrations within her world. And so by joining her mailing list, not only will you keep up to date about her music releases, but also it's a really valuable learning tool to see, okay, what is someone else doing that's working well for them? How can I use that as a template for my own work, but swap out what's true for me? But you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Very true. Very true. I've taken a lot of inspiration in my own emails from other people who I'm on their email list. I think your emails are great too.
Thank you. And you can also find Nay on YouTube. You can watch the replays of Saturday Orbital Ice Cream, those series plus other videos. Just search Nay, N-A-E, and Saturnae, S-A-T-U-R-N-A-E in YouTube. And then also, I know, Nay, you have a new single coming out with new merch.
Yes, there is a whole album of songs, including 2 singles and new merch launch in collaboration with Creations by Kendra. Lots of really cool candy, unique original perler designs, and a unicorn explosion. I'm really excited to share these things with the world. I am personally sparkling with enthusiasm.
I love it. Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's so cool. All right. Well, thanks so much, Nay. And thank you for everyone for joining us and watching this. You can also get in touch with me. I would love to talk. I'm a Lark, ALARKE, at Supreme Sound Life. So that's SupremeSound.Life. That's the website too, www.SupremeSound.Life. And I love working with female artists in pop and electronic music to help with singing, songwriting, music production, artist development, release strategies. And I'm an artist myself. I'm releasing new music, and I love connecting and supporting you. So be in touch with us, and you can also sign up to my newsletter at SupremeSound.Life/newsletter. And that's it. Thanks so much, and we'll talk soon. Ciao.